Listen up, presented by Dempsey's Grill and Sportsland in Middletown, Maryland. It's Phil Becerra and
Rye.
Rye, he said, Ryan Renner on Listen Up, Maryland. Look, Ryan, before we get on down to the AFC West Connor's division, a shout out to Connor and his cheetah. He sent me a picture the other day. He's got like his whole closet is just stacked. I mean, he has bags from top to bottom in his pantry full of Cheetos. You got barbecue, you got hot and spicy Cheetos. So, man, I tell you, with the football season getting closer and ramping up, he is definitely ready. He is definitely 100% ready. I don't know if you've talked to him any, but we only got about a less than a month left. So I mean, you can tell he's ready. He's got them Cheetos stacked.
Oh yeah. I've been talking to him a little bit. He's in his room. I know he's got all those jerseys hanging up, so I know he's definitely ready to cheer on his Broncos this season.
That's right. Today we'll be going over the AFC West again, presented by Dempsey's and Sportsland. Look, Ryan, before we get down into it, how about the Hall of Fame speeches? I mean to tell you, almost a million views for Peyton Manning in less than 24 hours, I believe. I mean, it was amazing for me to because I didn't catch the whole thing. I guess it was Sunday night, maybe Monday night, but it was just amazing, man. It never gets old. And when I traveled up there back in 18, because that was the first time for me in person in Canton, right? And when I go up there, I speak to different people that were staying at the hotel that I was at, and just getting to know different people up there. And the number one overall thing that I found to be very interesting, they loved the speeches. They said, if you've never been here before, you're going to love about this 3-4 day trip, right? The induction ceremonies and seeing their gold jackets. They said, out of everything, what you're going to love the most is the speech night. And I think that they nailed that, the people that told me that up there in Ohio, because yes, it's nice to see the gold jackets. It's nice to have dinner, with the athletes and the people that are getting inducted in the hall. But there's nothing like that night, man. Speech night, and you get to uncover your bust.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely exciting to see all the, awards and trophies and Hall of Fame busts in Canton and the big Hall of Fame building, but it's a totally different thing when you get to hear the men that made it into the Hall of Fame and when they just talk about their families, their friends, and really their whole career and really their whole life that, the path they chose to choose football and it's really a special thing to hear what they have to say. And yeah, I definitely love to hear and watch the speeches every single year.
All right, without wasting any more time, we'll get on down into it, Ryan. The AFC West. We'll go over the draft, the what we think will happen with these teams, where they will finish in the division, and then obviously our predictions at the end, like we do on every show. Um, Starting off, I guess we'll go first. What do you want to go? I'll leave it up to you. Last to first or first to last?
We can do first to last. Let's start
All
off
right.
with the Chiefs.
All right. Kansas City Chiefs. Ryan, they went 14-2 last year, made it to the Super Bowl. We obviously know what happened. They ran into the greatest of all time, and that was Tom Brady, and that was history. There's not much else to say. That defense. Don't take any credit away from that defense. Again, we talk about it over and over every show. I'm sure people are getting tired of hearing about it. That Buccaneers defense. We expect them to be one of the tops again in the league in 2021. But let's go over what the Kansas City Chiefs did in the draft.
Yeah, I mean, I really only had two picks that I liked in round two. Linebacker Nick Bolton out of Mizzou. I think he can be a starter right away. I think there's some questions on the Kansas City defense in terms of the linebacking core. Nick Bolton out of college, he doesn't look too bad, but I think he can definitely make an impact on the defense this season for the Chiefs. And another pick in round two, center Creed Humphrey out of Oklahoma. I know obviously in the Super Bowl for the Chiefs, there was a lot of, a couple injuries leading into that game. And ultimately, the reason why the Chiefs lost the Super Bowl or one of them was because of their offensive line, the injuries of the Buccaneers pass rush. So beefing up that offensive line for the Kansas City Chiefs is really important this season.
It is. I'm glad you bring that up because don't forget what they did in the off season during free agency. They traded. I believe it was a trade, right? Orlando Brown Jr. went
Yeah,
to
that's
the
right.
Kansas City Chiefs. So again, they bolstered that offensive line for Patrick Mahomes and company. Um, I think that was very much needed. I mean, obviously they got to the Super Bowl last year, but you still did not ultimately accomplish what you're supposed to accomplish, and that's win it all. Um, yeah, so I think that was a very good pick up by the Kansas City Chiefs. Again, the way I view it, and again, you're coming from a Class A organization, right? The Baltimore Ravens. So Orlando Brown Jr. coming over from the Ravens. Now, the only question is, how will he fit into that scheme that they run in Kansas City? I've heard from a lot of podcasts, a lot of people that some mixed feelings. I don't know about you. They think Orlando Brown Jr. would do just fine in Kansas City. Other ones will say it takes some time to get used to how they run up there because Baltimore runs the ball so much, right? And
Yeah.
he was used to playing in that offensive scheme. To me, if you ask me, I don't think that it would be a problem. I really don't. You put Orlando Brown Jr. out there to tackle, to block for Patrick Mahomes. That's what you're asking him to do, man. I know it's easier said than done. I don't think there would be an issue, Ryan.
No, I don't think so either. He's great pass run blocker, and talk about his speed as well. He's for 350 pound guy. He can move with the best of them. So I think, especially for Patrick Mahomes scrambling outside the pocket with him being a tackle, I think he can lead some of those blocks up the field for Patrick Mahomes. So I think he'll be a great fit in Kansas City.
Again, that's Orlando Brown Jr. looking to be the starting left tackle for the Kansas City Chiefs. Ryan. So yeah, that's the Chiefs and that was their biggest free agency pickup. Any more that you had listed as far as free agency?
Yeah, I saw where they released Eric Fisher and Mitchell Schwartz on the offensive line, and we just talked about they
Right. They're
replaced him with Orlando Brown. They got guard Joe Tooney, so I think they'll be fine in terms of the offensive line. They signed running back Jarrett McKinnon from the 49ers. It's a little bit of depth in the running back position. We talked about Clyde Edwards-Helaire coming out of LSU last season. He had an okay year. I think he still has a lot of room to improve in terms of running the ball, and he still has a lot of potential he needs to unlock. Also, Chiefs on the defensive side of the ball, they got defensive tackle Jerron Reed and cornerback Mike Hughes. So trying to beef up that defense a little bit. That's been a question that the Chiefs are trying to answer. We know the offense is something unique, one of a kind. It's very special. It's, almost impossible to stop at times. But I think the big question for the Chiefs is that, can they stop the opposing team on offense with their defense?
Yeah, because they got manhandled, absolutely manhandled, and it's a wonder that they actually, again, with Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, I'm not surprised, but it's a wonder that they even made it to the Super Bowl, considering how they got manhandled in that one game, right? So, yeah, I mean, I love teams that, obviously winning teams. You can't wait. This league is hard to play in, by far the hardest. That's why it's called the National Football League, right? And that's winning teams know they don't have that much time, man. If you're in your prime and you have Mahomes, obviously under that mega deal contract, you need to go right back to the board as quick as you can. There's not a season to waste because you don't know when the next injury comes. They could possibly, potentially end a career. I would go that far where it could end a career. So every season, especially for the winning ball clubs, is what can you address? And you need to address it not necessarily with a couple low draft picks, maybe, or, say we'll get a late free agent signing. No, you need to address it quickly. And that's what they did. And that's what I love about the Chiefs as far as winning teams. They knew, man. They knew 14-2. That was great. They made it to a Super Bowl appearance. But this team is looking to be the next dynasty, kind of like New England. And they knew they had to beef the offensive line up, and you said it. They did that.
Yeah, and we talked about before how hard it is to repeat as Super Bowl champions or really repeat in any sport. And, the fact that the Chiefs got to the conference championship in what was that, 2018 or 19, they lost to the Patriots and they got back to the Super Bowl. They beat the 49ers in the Super Bowl with that comeback. Then they make it back and they play the GOAT, the Tom Brady and the Bucks, and they just kind of falter. They just kind of go quiet in that game, and there was really nothing they could do the whole game. And they played them in the regular season, week 13, 14, something like that, and they manhandled the Buccaneers pretty dang good. So it was such a surprise to see the Chiefs kind of just go silent in that Super Bowl. So they're definitely looking to run it back this season.
Moving on to the Las Vegas, I want to almost say Oakland Raiders. Las Vegas Raiders. They finished in second place, Ryan, in the standings. 8-8. They finished a perfect 500. They finished the season on a one-game winning streak. Ryan, when you look at this draft, what did you like the most? I saw that they picked it first round, which is great. Again, they picked first round tackle Alex Leatherwood, considering the kind of division they are in. So again, are they looking to protect? Give Derek Carr that extra boost?
Yeah, I mean, talking about Derek Carr, I just want to bring up, I'm not sure that I believe in Derek Carr. I mean, after they had that great playoff run, or that they were supposed to, and Derek Carr gets injured in that playoff game. I forget what year that was, maybe 2017, somewhere around there. But he's really never been the same after that. Josh Jacobs is a great running back for the Raiders. He had a pretty incredible season last year, but just the Raiders' offensive line, I don't believe in it. They really don't have an offensive line at all. So I don't know how they're going to protect Derek Carr this season. And I don't know how they're going to block for Josh Jacobs. Alex Leatherwood, he's a great tackle. He's a great pickup. Obviously, we talk about Alabama players all the time.
Yeah.
Anybody out of Alabama is destined to be great. I like their second round pick as well, Trevon Moehrig, the safety out of TCU. I think he can be a starter because the Raiders, they really don't have anything on defense either. I just don't believe in their defense. They're shaky at the secondary and the linebacking position. So maybe Trevon Moehrig can step up this season, possibly even be a starter. But this Raiders team, I think it's going to be a really rough year.
Yeah, and they went heavy. I mean, they went with the exception of their round 7 pick, center Jimmy Morrissey. Uh,
Yeah.
they went heavy. I'm looking now. I mean, they went heavy on defense. So I mean, you pointed out they don't have anything on defense now. I mean, that's maybe this defense can come through. I mean, you're not a believer, it sounds like, in Derek Carr all of a sudden. So maybe this can be more of a defensive team. Maybe that's what they're trying to do. Maybe take less pressure off of that offense and get more picks, more fumbles, more turnovers for Derek Carr and set him up in better field position. Sometimes that's what you have to do, man. I mean, you're not going to luck out every year, even if you do have the top quarterback in the league. Sometimes that quarterback will have a down year, down games, a down year. So doesn't it help, right? When you have that defense that that's special. We call it that special kind of defense that can get picks for you, fumbles. Not only that, but can set you up in perfect field position, man. I mean, that's what more could you ask for as far as uh, the not the motivation. What's the word I'm trying to use? The when you get a sense of I can't even think of the word now, Ryan. When you just your opposition, you're getting the advantage, right? You're getting the advantage to
Right.
score in your own territory. The momentum.
Yeah. Yeah. Momentum. There we go. Yeah, I mean, they signed running back Kenyon Drake, and he's a great backup. He was with the Cardinals last season. He had a good year, so he'll be a good backup for Josh Jacobs. They also signed Willie Snead in free agency. You're familiar with him. He's from Baltimore, wide receiver. They have Henry Ruggs. He's a great wide receiver from Alabama, really fast guy. But like I said, I just don't know how the Raiders are going to protect Derek Carr and get running lanes for Josh Jacobs this season with the offensive line that they have. I just don't know how those guys are going to get it done. They also got end Yannick Ngakoue, also from the Ravens. He's a great end. He has, a high ceiling. He's a great player. They also got cornerback Casey Hayward, but I just don't think it's going to be enough for the Raiders this season. And I think, like I said, I think it's going to be a rough year for them.
Moving on to the third place, Angeles.
Yeah, Los Angeles Chargers.
Los Angeles Chargers, Ryan. They finished 7-9 last season. They finished on a 4-game winning streak. So, the 7-9 record might not be looking too fancy on paper, but they did finish with a 4-game winning streak when you look at that part of it. Ryan, this ball club, I don't know. Ever since they lost Phillip Rivers and he went to Indianapolis, now again, they have Justin Herbert, excellent quarterback. They're still trying to maybe persuade Chargers fans that, they are a team to be reckoned with in the West. I actually think that this team, out of all four, you tell me the Broncos, the Chargers, and the right now, Connor might be mad at me here, so don't spill any Cheetos on the floor here. Broncos, Chargers, and Raiders. The Chargers just may be eventually the biggest threat to Kansas City. Not saying that they'll ever get in first place over them when Mahomes is there, but this is a fun team, Ryan. This is a fun team to talk about. And again, later down the road, I don't know if it's as soon as this season, but I can possibly see the Chargers being the biggest threat out of those three teams to the Chiefs.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you there. I think it all starts, though, Justin Herbert, like you mentioned, great quarterback. He had a great rookie season last year. He was really throwing dots all around the field. And the Chargers have two great wide receivers in Mike Williams and Keenan Allen. Those are got two guys that can get it done, really tall guys. They have a lot of athleticism. They lost Hunter Henry, their tight end. He was a pretty good tight end for them, but they picked up Jared Cook. So I don't think they really lost a lot there. They beefed up the offensive line as well. They got Brian Bulaga, Corey Linsley from the Packers. They got linebacker Kyler Fackrell on the defensive side of the ball. Like I mentioned, the Raiders got Casey Hayward from them. They lost guard Trey Turner and linebacker Malik Jefferson, but I think they picked up the losses that they made in the offseason, but I think they replaced everybody pretty good. And I think Justin Herbert will have another breakout season this year, even better than what he had last season. And really, like I said, I think it all starts with him. They get Derwin James back, the great safety. I think for this team to strive, especially on the defensive side of the ball, I think he's really going to have to stay healthy, first of all, and really just be solid all around. He can fly all the way around the field. And I think the defense starts with Derwin James.
Yeah, hey, we had to try to contact him down there in Florida and maybe hook up with him for a podcast. Shout out to my guys down there, Brandon and Sam on Listen Up. They do their own thing down there, and they got a Florida State podcast running. Shout out to them because I'll tell you why. This guy right here, the Chargers, second-round draft pick, Asante Samuel Jr., he's right out of FSU, Ryan. And that's my favorite pick. That's my favorite pick that they had in the draft this year. When you watch tape on him, man, it's almost like a wide receiver on the other side of the football field. I mean, I don't know. It's hard to predict any of these ball players drafted, how what the outcome will be. But he stands at 5'10". He's only 21 years old. But I just think when you talk about this defense, man, I think you're going to hear this name come up, possibly a couple Pro Bowls eventually. Asante Samuel Jr. Remember that name, Ryan?
Yeah, I mean, being a Florida fan, I don't really like Florida State that much, but I do have to admit that Asante Samuel Jr., he's a great cornerback, and I think he could have been a first-round pick, but the Chargers got him in the second round. They were lucky enough to snag him up, and I want to put some of the attention on the first-round pick as well. Tackle Rashawn Slater out of Northwestern, one of the best tackles in the draft, in my opinion, and I think they got another steal there. He's a great offensive lineman. I think the Chargers still need a little bit more work on the offensive line. So I think he'll definitely help this season. Might see some playing time, some starting time for him. So I think the Chargers, like we've been saying, I think they're a really solid team this season.
Moving on to the last team in the division. They finished in last place. Connor, I'm sorry. I'm not trying to rub it in here, but they finished on a 3-game losing streak, and this is the Denver Broncos. I know Connor's been waiting on this moment, just like every year, for us to talk about his team. Ryan, the Denver Broncos. They were dominating the whole league, the whole National Football League when Peyton Manning was there. But eventually things went downhill, and I mean fast. This is a ball club that knows what they, just like the Raiders and Chargers, they know what they have to deal with for however many years. What, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 more years?
Yeah.
It's tough. It's going to be really, really tough. It's kind of like the Orioles and Yankees, right? You know, you have to deal with the Yankees for possibly another, I don't know, maybe another 10 or 20 years before you can even start winning again, right? And even if you do start winning again, if you're the Orioles, you still have the Yankees because it feels
Yeah.
like they're never going away. So that's how it feels right now. And remember we had Connor over and we were talking outside to him and we said, and he just rolls his eyes because there's really nothing else to say, man. You have to deal with Mahomes for the next 6, 7, 8 years, unless some kind of wild trade comes up or he leaves. Obviously, he leaves Kansas City eventually. I'm sure Denver Broncos fans would be relieved after that. But Ryan, they finished 5-11 in the division, last place. They had the potential. I will say that much. Again, though, if you're Raiders, Chargers, Broncos, I don't know what the answer is. I really don't. When you're dealing with Kansas City and that quarterback they have there. Um, the draft, Ryan. What did you like most about Denver's draft?
Yeah, well, they picked in the ninth spot right before Dallas, and they stole Patrick Surtain from us, a corner out of Alabama. He's a really good player, the top corner in the draft, in my opinion. I think he's a starter for them this season. He's really going to help on the defensive side of the ball. They lost AJ Boye, the corner, this season in the offseason. They signed Ronald Darby. He's an okay corner. I don't think he's the answer to stopping Patrick Mahomes, though. Round two, they got running back Javonte Williams out of North Carolina. I really like him. He's a really good running back, North Carolina. I remember watching him last season. They have Melvin Gordon still in Denver, but I think Javonte Williams can eventually work his way up to possibly even being a starter. I really like his potential in the NFL. They also acquired Teddy Bridgewater for a 6th-round pick. Uh, I think Teddy Bridgewater, Drew Lock talking about the quarterback competition. There's really no answer out of Vic Fangio and the Denver Broncos. Who's going to be the starter this season? I think that's a big question for the Broncos. They still have to answer.
Yeah. Again, you talk about their first round pick. I know Dallas wanted him bad. He's out of
Yeah.
Alabama. Patrick Surtain's a second. Yeah, he's obviously arguably the best corner in the draft. We'll have to see how that turns out. Javonte Williams, was it, running back out of North Carolina? That gives him a little boost, doesn't it? I mean, I could see him, and they got that pick from Atlanta, so I could see him turning out to be a quick contributor right off from week one.
Yeah, and I mean, to me, when I look at the Broncos roster up and down, they do look like a solid team all the way around, a good team. But there's really nothing to me that stands out. There's not a player that stands out on their roster, and I think, like I mentioned, it all starts with the question of who's going to be the starting quarterback. Drew Lock's been the starter a couple years, and he's really never been able to get anything done. Not lead them to a winning record that the playoff appearance that the Broncos fans want to see. I think Teddy Bridgewater is a really good quarterback. He had an okay season last year with the Panthers.
Yeah, I mean,
Obviously,
as far as what I'm seeing now, it's either, I mean, I see Brett. I think his last name is Ripien, is how you say it. But I'm only seeing 3 listed quarterbacks right now on this roster, and the other 2 are Drew Lock and Teddy Bridgewater. So I mean, yeah, it's looking like that. I'm not too familiar with this Brett Ripien, but Drew Lock and Teddy Bridgewater, obviously, it's good. I think it's going to be one of them. Maybe I don't know how they run the offense. I'm not too familiar with this either, how they run the offense in Denver. Maybe you can see a mix of Bridgewater and Drew Lock, or maybe Drew Lock starts week 1, but eventually it's one of them situations where, hey, they're either winning ball games with Drew Lock or they're not. And in that case, if they're not, then Teddy Bridgewater comes in. I mean, it could be a mix and match situation there, because I'm like you. I don't think that there's really one, lock as far as, and I think that's a problem with Denver right now. You look at the roster, and I don't think, as you can go through, I don't know, teams, the winning ball clubs right now in the NFL, you could almost go through every single on the depth chart. You could go through every single position on that roster, right? And you almost know right off the bat, if you follow football, right away who's going to be a lock at that position, who's going to start week 1. As long as they don't get injured in training camp, as long as everything goes fine, who's going to be on that field week 1. But I feel like with the Broncos, you can't really do that right now. So you're right. There's a lot of questions to it.
Yeah, and I feel like it could even be something as a week to week basis. Like you said, Drew Lock
Yeah.
could start week
Yeah.
1, and if he has a terrible performance, we could see Teddy Bridgewater the next week, and it could really shift back and forth all
I mean, it's
year.
so much stuff that go into it. I mean, who you play, who you play from week to week, what your division is, where you're standing in the division, and we got to remember, this is not like baseball, right? You bring in a quarterback to start a game, and at halftime, you may see a different quarterback in the third quarter.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and again, it's been, and that's what's nice about football, the flexibility. Obviously, I think that's when I argue baseball and football, we're not going there. But yeah, baseball, I think that's why it's just, for as far as a managing and coaching standpoint, I think it's harder, because for as far as pitching, once you take that pitcher out, he's not back in the ball game.
Yeah, and I mean, injuries are something that always comes up, and just like that, one play and a player could be done for the rest of the season. So it's kind of good when you look at it that way, that you have two potential quarterbacks that are starters in the league, and for one to back up the other, it could be a positive for the Broncos.
Any big names for free agency? I know we went over Teddy Bridgewater. They just signed him this year.
Yeah, this year.
And then I saw that they had reported free agents additions were Ronald Darby. So you went over him out of Washington. Um, and then Mike Boone, the running back, Kyle Fuller. Um, yeah, so again, you don't see a lot of big names, and maybe they can make a big name for themselves um, in Denver. They still held on to Von Miller and Kareem Jackson, right?
Yeah, and they still have Bradley Chubb and Von Miller, Bradley Chubb. I believe Von Miller was out all last season. So Bradley Chubb struggled a little bit to kind of hold down the weight that the linebacker position holds there in Denver. But those two coming off the edge at the linebacker position is what really makes this defense something special, and really something special to watch when both of those players can collide on the offense and that get to the quarterback. It's really hard to block either of those guys coming off the edge.
Yeah, I mean, with the exception of Kansas City, because I don't see Denver. I say now, I mean, unless something wild happens, I don't see Denver beating Kansas City either of the two times. I may be a close game in Denver, but I see Kansas City sweeping Denver this season. But with the exception of Kansas City, this team, you're right, it could be very special, because that defense still has some big names on it. We know what Von Miller can do. We saw him in a Super Bowl before. But again, if they could just figure it out on offense, yeah, I think, again, with the exception of Kansas City, I think that they could, some games even that they are not favored in, Denver could come out and win them.
Yeah, and I mean, Melvin Gordon, they still have, and like I said, Javonte Williams. I think they really still have some questions at running back. Even they still have Jerry Jeudy, the young wide receiver. He had a pretty good rookie season last year. I think they still need some depth at the wide receiver position. The offensive line has never really been that good in Denver. It's kind of been average, nothing really special. And like I said before, there's really nothing that stands out on this Denver Broncos roster for me personally. So that's why I think this Broncos team is really going to be another average year that they're going to have this season.
Yeah. All right, predictions going into this season. I'll give you my standings, Ryan. I'll let you go. I have the Kansas City Chiefs again, obviously winning this
Yeah,
division.
big
I think that
surprise
this is
there.
probably the easiest pick as far as division previews. Who's going to win these divisions? This might be the easiest pick out of them all. Even if people do not pay attention to football, they know, believe me, in the back of their mind, they know the Kansas City Chiefs are absolutely dominating the football world. It's not a secret. We know that, and we're going to know that for years until someone, a dark horse can come through and possibly knock them off. And you know who I'm hoping that might be, but we won't say any names right now. That's a big smile on your face. But yeah, so we know what Kansas City can do. I have Kansas City winning the AFC West. I have the Chargers finishing in second place. I have the Raiders in third. And I'm sorry, Connor, but again, I have the Denver Broncos finishing in last. Now, as far as playoffs, Ryan, it's tough. Obviously the Kansas City Chiefs, yes, they will be in the postseason. I don't see any of these other teams making it to the postseason.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I have the Chiefs as well, finishing first. I don't think that's a big surprise. They're going to repeat as champs as of the AFC West again. I also have the Chargers in second. I think they're a really good team. I think Justin Herbert is going to get it done this season. Pretty solid defense, pretty solid team all the way around. I have the Broncos in third. Like I said,
Okay.
yeah, I think they're an average team, and I think they could maybe sneak into the playoffs if they start getting on a roll. But in fourth, the Raiders, like I said, I think they're going to have a terrible year. I don't believe in Derek Carr. Really bad offensive line, really bad defense all the way around. I'm sorry, Raiders fans. It's going to be a rough year. In terms of playoffs, obviously the Chiefs will make it. I think the Chargers will make it as well. I think they'll make it into the wild card. I think they have a really good team. I think Justin Herbert will lead them to a playoff spot. I don't think the Broncos will make it in, and obviously the Raiders won't make it.
You have been listening to Listen Up Division Previews presented by Dempsey's Growing Sports Center. Ryan, next up, what do you want to do, Ryan? How about the NFC? What is it, NFC East? That's the Cowboys in there, isn't it?
Yeah, I think we still have one more in the AFC to finish up, though. The
That's
AFC
right. We still
East.
okay. So we'll go ahead and next one will be AFC East then. AFC East, and then we'll go ahead and move on to your division, the NFC East.
Yeah, that
Knock out
sounds
all the
good.
East teams, huh?
Yeah, I can't wait for that one. NFC East, baby.
Oh man, I'll let you handle that episode. I'll just sit back and watch.
Yeah.
All right, Ryan. I'll see you.
All right.